powerful again. The U.S. Court of Appeals here in Washington, they ruled 7-4 yesterday. The decision came out about 5:30 yesterday late afternoon ahead of the three-day weekend to uphold a lower court ruling that Trump usurped his executive power by using a 1977 law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which does not mention tariffs.
Fox's Lucas Tomlinson at the White House. Another federal judge struck down the president's goal of expanding fast-tracking deportations. Here's Fox's Madeline Rivera in D.C.
On Friday, a federal judge blocked the administration from deporting immigrants who are in the country illegally without a hearing. Federal District Court Judge Gia Cobb writing the court does not cast doubt on the constitutionality of the expedited removal statute, nor in its long-standing application at the border. It merely holds that in applying the statute to a huge group of people living in the interior of the country who have not been previously subjected to expedited removal, the government must afford them due process. The procedures currently in place fall short. A Department of Homeland Security spokesman tells the New York Times the ruling ignores the president's clear authorities.
The policy had applied only to recent migrants caught near the border. America is listening to Fox News.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
It's time to take the quiz.
It's 5 questions in less than 5 minutes. We asked people on the streets of New York City to play along. Let's see how you do.
Including the pre-Super Bowl era, what NFL franchise has won the most NFL championships?
I'm going to say the Cowboys.
Good guess. I would say the Packers.
Take the quiz every day at thequiz.fox. Then come back here to see how you did.
And thank you for taking the quiz.
We're learning more about
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Where they found the suspect in a 2-year-old's death. I'm Jarrett Lewis. Here's what's trending this hour. Indianapolis and Chicago police arresting a man on Thursday for his role in the fatal shooting of a young girl. Harmony Anderson was shot at a home back in July, later died at a hospital. 2 people were initially detained but released later on after detectives gathered more evidence and located several guns at the scene. An arrest warrant was issued for Leonte Anderson.
It took a lot of great work by our IMPD Violent Crime Unit and the detectives there, working with the U.S. Marshals within Chicago and then also the Chicago Police Department, having communications, locating this individual, and then we were able to take him into custody.
IMPD officer Tommy Thompson says Leonte is being sent back to Indy after being found in Chicago. Indiana Congressman Jim Baird is advocating for the redrawing of Indiana's congressional map ahead of the 2026 midterms, he says due to migration patterns seen since 2020. Baird's 4th district is the only one in the state that borders both of Indiana's Democratic-controlled congressional seats. And Marcus Freeman says Notre Dame and C.J. Carr are ready for Sunday night's opener. Len Clark has more.
Marcus Freeman was confident in handing the keys to the offense to quarterback C.J. Carr and talks about what helped the redshirt freshman get to this point.
A lot of the things he's done in the past and since he's been here has told me he'll be ready for this moment. The fall camp has told me he'll be ready for this moment. This week's been really good.
The 6th-ranked Fighting Irish meet number 10 Miami Sunday night with a kickoff at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Len Clark, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
I'm Jarrett Lewis on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com. Now the forecast from the American Standard Cooling Weather Center.
Mostly clear, low temperatures in the low to mid 50s on Sunday. High temperatures getting in the upper 70s. Another day with mostly sunny skies. Another strong cold front will be on the way late Wednesday. On Wish TV, Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
An official message from Medicare.
I'm saving money on my Medicare prescriptions. Maybe you can save too. With Medicare's Extra Help program, my premium is $0 and my out-of-pocket costs are low. Who should apply? Single people making less than $24,000 a year or married couples who make less than $32,000. Even if you don't think you qualify, it pays to find out.
Go to ssa.gov/extrahelp. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
When I was younger, I may have did some stupid things, even committed some crimes. but I'm not a criminal.
I work for youth advocate programs, YAP. I was Tamani's advocate, helping him stay out of jail, stay in the neighborhood, and get a job.
As a little kid, I experienced trauma and I acted out. Made some mistakes, but I'm not a mistake.
As Jalen's YAP advocate, I'm always here for her.
YAP is a community-based alternative to youth incarceration and neighborhood violence. Youth advocate programs. Learn how at yapinc.org.
Save at the Sundown Gardens Labor Day weekend sale. 20% off trees and shrubs, 30% off pottery. 186th Street and Spring Mill Road in Westfield, closed Labor Day.
Indy Humane. Find your new best friend today. Visit indyhumane.org.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment. And this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And good afternoon and welcome to the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. Glad you're with us. I hope you got out and were able to exercise your Second Amendment rights today. Or maybe even enjoying some college football, which kicked off with a game or two earlier, but really the first day of a full day of legitimate college football. Even tomorrow, Notre Dame plays on a Sunday night of all things against Miami. Remember the old convicts versus Catholics rivalry way back when? That always cracked me up. Catholics versus convicts, Notre Dame versus Miami, a renewal of that in Miami tomorrow night. But, hey, enough about sports. You don't tune in to the Gun Guy Show to talk about sports. I read a story this past week that was somewhat terrifying to me, and I really want to talk about it here on the show because this can potentially influence a lot of us who travel to Ohio. And since Ohio, for the last few years, has been recognizing the Indiana license to carry handgun, then a lot of us take our handguns with us when we go to Ohio. And if a state recognizes a license, and again, in Indiana, we call it a license to carry handgun. And I always try to sort of gently correct people. I'll hear them call it a concealed carry license or CCW or any number of other terms that they use in other states that we don't use here, because it is by statute, it has a particular name. It's licensed to carry handgun. But if another state recognizes our license, and I've said this many, many times here on the Gun Guy Show, knowing that another state recognizes our license is just step one in terms of knowing how to legally possess and carry in that other state. In other words, okay, they recognize my license, but what does that mean? Do they have other restrictions? Do they only recognize my license if I'm 21, as opposed to 18, 19, and 20-year-olds who can get a license in Indiana, but a lot of states, like for instance, Florida is one of these, only recognizes particular other states' licenses or permits to carry a handgun if they're 21. And there are a lot of places you can't carry. A lot of places where it's illegal to carry. In other states, it's illegal to carry there in those other states because they have laws that we don't have. There's no law in Indiana that says you cannot carry in a church. In some states, there's a law that says you cannot carry in a church. Much more about churches later in the show after the horrific Minneapolis church shooting on the grounds of a Catholic school. But in some states, you can't carry in a church. In some states, you can't carry into a place that serves alcohol. In some states, you can't carry if you have any detectable level of alcohol in your system. Indiana doesn't have any of those laws. Some states, it's illegal to carry into a sports stadium. Well, it's not illegal in Indiana to carry into a sports stadium, but a lot of teams or theater groups or whoever it might be that operate venues where sometimes there are sporting events prohibit firearms. And there are some legal mechanisms that allow them to do that without running afoul of either our preemption law or the Second Amendment. But what my point in all of that is just knowing that a state recognizes our license to carry handgun is just the beginning of the inquiry. And a whole lot more needs to happen for you to have some security and confidence that you're not going to run afoul of the law when you go to another state. Well, knowing all of that, and as someone who has looked into this, for instance, Ohio has a law that you have to disclose that you have a gun in the car, even if you have a license. And by the way, I'm sure I posted, by the way, on X or Twitter, as well as on Facebook, but on Twitter I put a post that said that a man in Ohio who has a valid lifetime license to carry handgun is facing felony charges in Ohio simply for having a loaded gun in his car. I put the simply in there for a reason, because I assume that I said, he was facing prosecution for a felony in Ohio for having a gun in his car. And I figured a lot of people would come on and say, well, that's because he'd been consuming alcohol, or that's because he didn't disclose the gun. Another rule in Ohio, by the way, you can't touch the gun during the stop. You can't handle it or touch it in any way during the stop. Otherwise, it's a crime. It's a felony. Just like failure to disclose. Now, in Indiana, we don't have those laws. It'd be really dumb to handle your gun during a traffic stop without permission of the officer. But it's not necessarily on its face illegal. And it's not illegal to fail to disclose. We don't have a duty to disclose in Indiana. But I put the simply in there when I posted about what I was going to talk about on the show, because I was expecting people to say, he didn't disclose, which you have to do in Ohio. And again, that's another point that you have to know state to state to state if you're going to travel with your handgun or firearm generally. What are the other laws that apply, like duty to disclose? That's why I keep an app. Somebody asked me about this app on Facebook, sent me a private message on Facebook, said, Guy, you've mentioned this app before. And listen, I have no connection to these people. I make no money from them. But the app I liked, that I like to keep on my phone, is just called CCW. If you go to it and load it as an app, it's got a map of the United States and just a handgun outlined over the top of a map of the United States. And I think I pay like $1 a month or something. I think there is a fee associated, at least with the version that I loaded on my phone. But I love this thing, 'cause every time I open it, it says updating. And it's run by a bunch of lawyers who I think do a really good job of keeping it up to date. And seriously, it updates every time I open it. But that's one of the things you can check if you're going to travel. What are there provisions like duty to disclose, or is there a prohibition against carrying or possessing if you've had some level of alcohol? And again, in Indiana, no law that says you can't possess a firearm if you've been consuming alcohol. There's actually not a law. And I talk often about the distinction between whether something's smart or responsible and whether it's illegal. And I'm a big fan of personal responsibility. And I don't believe in legislating every damn thing associated with any topic, including firearms and the possession of firearms. We don't have a law in Indiana even against being stone cold drunk, falling down intoxicated, and in possession of a firearm. Now, that's really, really stupid and irresponsible and can lead to a lot of other things, like bad decisions that can land you in jail for crimes like criminal recklessness or intimidation or pointing a firearm or any number of others for being stupid drunk and in possession of a gun. But in and of itself, there's no law in Indiana. But a lot of states have laws along those lines. So that's all the wind-up. Why is a guy, and this is funny, because as much as I study this stuff, and I've looked at Ohio's laws, because I've traveled through Ohio and I've taken my gun with me. And so I want to be on the right side of the law. When I read this story about how this guy got arrested and why he's being prosecuted, it was a little scary to me, because I didn't know there was this potential criminal liability, this criminal culpability in Ohio based on the way it unfolded for this guy. What is that? I'll get into that right after this break. We're going to take a break. By the way, give me a call. You want to talk about traveling with your firearm? I think that's going to be somewhat of a theme, at least for a while here on the show. I'm going to get into some other subjects. What's going on at the Supreme Court? We'll talk a little bit about school shootings. Thomas Massey, U.S. Representative from Kentucky, has introduced a bill to repeal the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. What exactly are the laws around possession of a gun on or near a school? How's Indiana look at that? How do the feds look at that? What would the effect be of the feds repealing the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act? There's a lot to get into as we progress through the show, but I'm going to talk here a little bit about traveling with a firearm. You're curious, you got a comment, you got a question, give us a call, 317-239-9393. 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
The shooting killed 2 children, only 8 and 10 years old.
93 WIBC Mobile News.
There were a lot of hugs. There were a lot of tears.
Governor Braun ordered the flags to fly at half-staff.
Another update is just minutes away.
600 drone ballistic missiles were fired on targets in Ukraine.
It's your responsibility to be accountable for your child, and if you determine not to do that, this is what can happen. Stepped out of the car and pointed a handgun at police. 3 cops ended up shooting him.
Stay in the know while you're on the go.
Ballard says he will not trade Anthony Richardson.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our next Essentials of Indiana Gun Law is coming up on September 20th. It's going to be at Indy Arms, 9 a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. This is 5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner, including a detailed discussion of the justified use of force and self-defense, and a whole heck of a lot more over 5 full hours. We'd love to see you there. It's fast-paced. The 5 hours goes very quickly, as everyone always tells me when they come take it. We'd love to see you there. $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
Everybody knows Hubler's got the best warranty around. 10 years, 200,000 miles. But did you know? Now you can get that same limited powertrain warranty on new Toyotas. Introducing the all-new Hubler Toyota. Get grand opening savings all month long. And right now, lease a new 2025 RAV4, just $349 per month. Or a new Tacoma, $299 per month. Plus, choose from Camrys, Corollas, Highlanders, Tundras, and more.
Hubler's got you covered.
At the all-new Hubler Toyota on US 31 South in Indianapolis. Visit HublerToyota.com. Grand opening savings and the best warranty around. 10 years, 200,000 miles.
Cover me!
Select models, approved credit, plus tax, tag, title, license, 249 dealer doc. RAV4 model 4432, Tacoma model 7540. 36 months, $29.99 due, 0 security, 10,000 annual miles, 15 cents per mile thereafter. Expires 9/1.
When you own a business, it feels like everything's on you. Orders, deliveries, employees, on you. That's why Comcast Business is giving you a year of mobile on us with your internet service.
Really?
Yep. We'll cover your first line of mobile for 1 year. So calling customers, getting directions, texting Janine and shipping, on us. The broken coffee maker? That one's still on you, which means you'll save hundreds for your business and get the fastest mobile service with 5G cellular and Wi-Fi hotspots, on us. But hurry, this deal won't last long. Get a mobile plan and free up the budget to maybe, I don't know, fix that coffee maker? Get mobile on us for 1 year, you guessed it, on us. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Ends 10/9/25. Restrictions apply. New mobile customers only with internet standard service or above. Limited to value of 1 unlimited intro line apply via 12 monthly internet bill credits. 1 discount per account. Fastest mobile based on mobile Wi-Fi and cellular data in service areas. Ookla Speed Test Intelligence 2H24.
As a caring adult of a 7th or 8th grader, you may see their college plans as a distant process, but in reality, it'll be here in no time. Think about it. Your child could be heading to college by the time you pay off your next car. There's a good reason for middle schoolers and you to start planning their path to college today. This message is brought to you by the Indiana Youth Institute. Indiana's 21st Century Scholarship provides eligible students with up to 4 years of paid college tuition. So here's what you need to know. It is key that we make sure every eligible child is enrolled in the program. Requirements vary dependent upon age, and early sign-up is available for 7th grade students. For more information on the 21st Century Scholarship, visit learnmoreindiana.org/scholars. This Kids Count Minute is a message from the Indiana Youth Institute. For more parent tips, visit IYI.org.
Kids count on you.
Teachers shape the future. Right now,
In a classroom somewhere in the United States, there's a teacher inspiring a future scientist who'll make preventing pandemics their life's work, sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who'll help combat climate change, and generating possibilities for a student who'll be the first in their family to graduate college. Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud of. Teach. Learn more and receive free support at teach.org.
Pierce Jewelers, Carmel's family-owned jewelry store, is dedicated to quality and fine craftsmanship. Let them help you celebrate that special moment in your life. Shop local, shop smart, shop Pierce Jewelers. Through their service, veterans have our backs. Now we should have theirs. Learn more at gotyoursix.org.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So, Vontae Garrett is an Indiana resident, and he has a lifetime Indiana license to carry. Indiana license to carry handgun. That's exactly what we call it. And so, he's traveling back to Toledo, where he's from, to visit his family. And he had recently bought a car, and he had registered the car in his name, but it hadn't yet put his plate on it. He still had the original plate from the owner that he bought the car from. So it's got an old plate on it, but he's registered it. So no big deal. He gets pulled over by a Lucas County, Ohio sheriff's deputy because his registration didn't match the plates. So he calls in the plates or looks them up on his computer. Why he's just doing that randomly to Vontae's vehicle, I can speculate as to the reason, but he's doing that, and you don't have any expectation of privacy in your license plate, and cops can run them randomly if they want to. But he does that, and the plates don't match the registration, so he pulls Vontae over. He explained what's going on. Hey, I just bought the car. The previous owner's tags are still on the car. As soon as I get home, I'm going to change them. Well, that in and of itself was no big deal, except the deputy asked if Vontae had a gun in the car. And being an honest guy, he answered truthfully. He says, yeah. He says, I have a handgun in the car, but I also have an Indiana license to carry handgun, lifetime. And in Vontae's mind, I'm 100% sure, he figures he's just fine because he knows, like you and I know, that Ohio recognizes the Indiana license to carry. And when I say recognize, what that means is states enter into what are called reciprocity agreements. And a state says, yes, we, in this case Ohio, are going to recognize, in other words, honor an Indiana license to carry. And for many years, Ohio did not recognize the Indiana license. And the primary reason for that is Ohio has a training requirement to get what they call a concealed handgun license. And we don't have a training requirement. And so Ohio said, well, we don't want a bunch of untrained Hoosiers running around with guns in Ohio. But that changed here just a few years ago. And Ohio began recognizing the Indiana license. So as far as Vontae's concerned, I'm sure at this moment, when he says, yeah, there's a handgun in the car, but I have a lifetime Indiana license, he thinks he's just fine. But Vontae gets put in handcuffs and taken to jail. And the reason he was taken to jail, and this completely floored me when I looked this up, is that, yes, Ohio has a law, has a reciprocity agreement with Indiana. At the same time, they also have a law that says no person shall knowingly transport or have a loaded firearm in a motor vehicle in such a manner that the firearm is accessible to the operator or any passenger without leaving the vehicle. So they're essentially trying to say here, it's got to be in the trunk, or it's got to be in the locked toolbox in the bed of your truck. So it's got to be in the trunk of your car, or it's got to be somewhere where you have to get out of the vehicle to access it. Well, hold on. How can you not have a firearm in a motor vehicle and yet at the same time say that an Indiana license to carry is recognized? Or how does that even happen with people with Ohio concealed handgun licenses. Well, that's where the rub comes in, because this statute has an exception. And again, the statute says you can't knowingly transport or have loaded I'll start that over. You can't knowingly transport or have a loaded firearm in a motor vehicle in such a manner that the firearm is accessible to the operator or any passenger without leaving the vehicle. All right. That's what the law says. But then, like most laws, it has an exception. It said it doesn't apply if the person transporting or possessing the handgun has been issued a concealed handgun license that is valid at the time in question, or the person's an active member of the armed forces and carrying a military ID and documentation of successful firearm training that meets Ohio requirements. So it says if you've been issued a concealed handgun license. And the prosecutor in this case, in Lucas County, Ohio, is apparently taking the position that the reference in that exception, if you have a concealed handgun license, is only for someone with an Ohio concealed handgun license. And again, we don't call ours a concealed handgun license. And I'm sure that's a defined term in their statute referring specifically to the Ohio license. So the prosecutor that's trying to put Vontae Garrett in prison for a felony is taking the position that because the statute does not say there's an exception to this rule, you can't have a loaded firearm accessible from inside the vehicle. The exception only applies to someone with an Ohio license to carry because the statute doesn't say if they've been issued a concealed handgun license or a license from a state that Ohio has entered into a reciprocity agreement with. It doesn't have that second provision. Could a court look at this and say, hold on, the reference to if they've been issued a concealed handgun license, that has to refer both to the Ohio license and any other license that Ohio recognizes. But that's not exactly what it says. And when you're looking at potential felony charges and a felony conviction, after which you've lost your gun rights and for which you can spend substantial period of time in prison, that kind of ambiguity is not something I want to rely upon. And this absolutely threw me when I read it, because I'm saying, holy heck, I have taken my handgun into Ohio multiple times since they began recognizing the Indiana license, and never once did I think, oh, well, gosh, there's a separate law that says I can't have a handgun accessible to me from the passenger compartment of the vehicle. And the only exception to that is if I have an Ohio license. That is mind-boggling to me and scary to me. And I think it flies in the face of the whole reciprocity agreement between Ohio and Illinois to begin with. Because I got to believe that the vast, vast, vast majority of people who are going to take advantage of the fact that Ohio recognizes the Indiana license to carry are going to transport their handgun into Ohio in a car. And most of us are going to do that with a handgun inside the passenger compartment of the car. Otherwise, it doesn't do you much good as a means of self-defense. There's a potential carjacking in Ohio, but hold on, Mr. Carjacker. I'm going to get back to the trunk here and get my handgun, and I'll be with you in just a second. Great. Changing a tire on the side of the interstate late at night. Another car with unknown people pulls over. I'm wearing my gun in a holster on my hip. Well, if at any point in time I had that gun in a holster on my hip inside the vehicle in Ohio, according anyway to the Lucas County prosecutor's office, apparently, I'm committing a felony. So I wanted to get that word out, but it is a really good example of what I talk about here often, which is taking your gun into another state. If all you do is look up whether that state recognizes the Indiana license to carry, think, there you go, I'm good, that's a naive mistake. But even as the guy who preaches that sermon often, this one threw me because I'm saying, hell, I didn't know that. And I'll guarantee you, I was as subject to being put in jail as Vontae Garrett. Now, maybe, and I'm speculating here, I'd be less likely to get pulled over for something trivial like my license plate not matching my registration in Lucas County, Ohio, by a sheriff's deputy than Vontae was. But I'm perhaps casting aspersions on the sheriff's department there that they don't deserve. But scary situation. I wanted to put that out there, but it's a great example because again, I've actually gotten calls from the Hamilton County Jail, and I'm talking about Hamilton County, Ohio, where people have called and said, "Hey, I'm in jail in Ohio. I know what you do for a living as an attorney in Indiana, guy. Do you know an Ohio lawyer that does the same thing you do? Because I'm in jail." And I'm like, "What happened?" I had one person who got pulled over on the interstate in Ohio, and his registration for his car was in his glove compartment, and he had his handgun sitting on top of the registration. And this is somebody else, again, with an Indiana license to carry. And as the officer was walking up, he thought, you know what? I need to get my registration out, and I want to be above board here and make sure the officer doesn't think I'm trying to hide the fact that I have a gun in the car, so I'll just put the gun right up here on the dashboard and get my registration out. So he touched the gun as the officer was walking up. He gets yanked out of the vehicle. He gets arrested for failure to inform. Well, he didn't really have a chance to inform. The officer was just walking up, opens the door, grabs him, and throws him on the ground. At no point did he have an opportunity before that happened to inform the officer there was a gun in the car. But what he did do, and this apparently is on officer's dash cam and or body cam video, was he touched the gun during the traffic stop. And that right there made traveling into Ohio with my gun a little scary. That's one of the reasons I looked those things up. But just know there was at least one set of law enforcement officers and prosecutors in one particular county in Ohio who would take the position that having an Indiana license to carry isn't good enough to legalize having a gun accessible to you from within the passenger compartment of a motor vehicle in Ohio. News to me. Wanted to get the word out to you. We're going to take a break here at the bottom of the hour. We come back. I think we got some folks on the phone line, so I will go to the phone and answer calls. Join the discussion, questions, comments. Love to have you call in and join the show. It's 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
It's hot out there. The weather's hot.
And when we say hot,
But the headlines, they're even hotter.
I mean extremely hot.
The news of the day is heating up.
IMPD officers shot at least 3 times. One suspect was also shot.
Diego Morales, Secretary of State, in his bizarro international travel.
Playing out right in front of us every single day.
Stay cool.
Finally, a cool down is coming.
Stay informed.
All the information right here.
Stay with 93 WIBC.
Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield has the deals you've been looking for your next car, truck, SUV, or electric vehicle. And right now, during their Red, White, and New sales event, you will get independence from car payments with no payments for 3 months and enjoy your freedom in the new Ford F-150 Super Crew or Mustang with 0% APR financing for 48 months. At Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield, they're pros at servicing your commercial vehicles. From medium to heavy-duty F-Series trucks, talk to Andy Moore Ford, the biggest selection of Super Duties in the entire state. Over 175 Super Duty trucks are on the ground and ready for you and your business, and you can save thousands because Andy always gives you more. And with an expert team and a fast turnaround, they know how to keep your business moving. Talk to Andy Moore Ford today. 2713 East Main Street in Plainfield or online at Andy Moore Ford, MOHR.
I love Andy.
AndyMooreFord.com.
There's just something special about late summer at Wilson Farm Market. The sweet corn's still crisp, the tomatoes are juicy, and the cucumbers taste just like the summer should. Stop by with the family, fill your basket with fresh produce, grab some hot, fresh fried chicken, pick up homemade jams, and select from hundreds of cheeses to make every meal something special. And don't forget that famous pretzel bread. It's always a hit at the dinner table. 20 minutes north of Carmel on 31 in Arcadia. Online at wilsonfarmmarket.com. That's wilsonfarmmarket.com.
This time next week, I'll be sick in bed with West Nile virus, thanks to a mosquito bite right in front of my house.
In 8 minutes, my daughter will be in an ambulance, having an asthma attack, triggered by cockroaches.
I'm going to be bitten by a tick today. I won't even know it until Lyme disease turns my life upside down.
Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org. A public service message from the National Pest Management Association and the CDC.
This hour on 93 WIBC, powered by Pierce Jewelers in Carmel, designers of fine custom jewelry.
Fox News, I'm Daria Albinger. President Trump says Chicago is one of the next places he's considering deploying the National Guard to fight crime. Alderman Raymond Lopez.
Anything that helps bring peace, as we've saw it, bring increased public safety in Washington, D.C. over the past 30 days, they want that here as well.
Many city leaders, though, and the Illinois governor do not want the Guard deployed. Appears there's no peace in sight for Russia and Ukraine. U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker.
President Trump's making sure, one, that Ukraine can continue to defend itself, and by giving them some deeper strike capabilities that obviously could help them offensively. They've already taken out about 20% of Russia's oil refining capacity in the last month.
Major sticking point, whether Russia should hold on to the land that it seized from Ukraine. America's listening to Fox News.
Zillow ranks Indianapolis number 2 among 2025's hottest markets. Home values have risen and are holding strong. Now is a great time to sell. Hire the team with proven systems to maximize your equity. Sell your home with Mark Dietel. Maybe you want a fast, guaranteed, no-hassle home sale, but don't want to give up hard-earned equity to do it. Mark Dietel guarantees your home sold at a mutually agreed-upon price and deadline, or he will buy it. Listen to what Sarah in Fountain Square had to say about working with Mark Dietel. After investing in a property in Fountain Square, I ran into some financial trouble and needed to sell the place fast for maximum dollars. I hired the Mark Dietel team, and they were able to sell my property within weeks over list price. Call the local Indianapolis agent I trust and recommend, and the agent who guarantees your home sold or he'll buy it. Call Mark Dietel at 317-755-4232 for all the details, or go online to markdietel.com. That's Mark, DIETEL.com. Tell him Rob sent you.
Road trip! This summer at Tire Discounters, your tires are your passport to savings, because you're driving to Paris,
Texas,
then it's off to Rome,
Georgia,
and you'll be kissing the Blarney Stone in Dublin,
Ohio!
Right now, save up to $404 when you buy 4 tires, and that includes a free alignment and oil change. Stop at Tire Discounters before you see the world.
Grown-ups, don't go back to school. Go forward through school into your future as an IT professional. Whether you're starting out, switching careers, or a veteran ready for change, My Computer Career can help you get into IT in just a few short months with no prior experience. So take the free career evaluation now at mycomputercareer.edu. Your rewarding career in IT awaits. That's mycomputercareer.edu, an elite CompTIA certification partner. Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including the VA benefits.
The show about gun rights, gun safety, and responsible gun ownership. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. Got a number of callers. Let's go to the phone lines. Tim has called in. Tim, welcome to The Gun Guy Show.
Hey guys, thanks for taking the call. I got a question for you.
Sure, buddy.
When you get pulled over and they've read your plate, doesn't it automatically tell them that somebody's got a license for the carry a gun?
That is a great question, Tim. And the answer is no, not when they run your license plate, but when they run your driver's license. In Indiana, the driver's license database and the license to carry database are linked. And so when they run your driver's license, they're told. Now, what some officers will do, and some departments different departments have different SOPs on this, standard operating procedures. But what some officers will do, if they're pulling somebody over, or they're even considering pulling somebody over, they'll run their plate, and then the registered owner comes up on their computer when they run the plate, and then they can run the driver's license of the registered owner. Now, that doesn't mean that the registered owner is necessarily the one driving. right? You can lend your car to somebody, or cars can be shared, by roommates or whatnot, but they'll do that. And then, so that happens often. So sometimes the officer knows before they even get out of their car, because they've run the plate, then they've run the driver's license, that the person has a license to carry. But what made you ask that, Tim?
Well, the reason is the last time I got pulled over, it was down in Franklin, Johnson County, and the guy had his hand on the gun right when he's walking up, and it just kind of caught me off guard because I've been pulled over before I got my permit. I got a lifetime, and they were more at ease. And the first thing I tell him, like you say, just be smart. Hey, man, I got a gun. It's in the console. It's right here. And 99% of the time they say, you don't pull yours, I won't pull mine.
Exactly.
Real relaxed.
I've had a police officer say exactly that. Carmel officer said exactly that. He goes, tell you what, you don't touch yours, I won't touch mine. And we both laughed, and he ended up giving me a warning for 72 and a 45, no less.
Exactly.
What was? Let me guess, Tim, was this a younger guy?
Yeah, it was.
There you go. And that's been my experience. I talk to a lot of officers a lot of times. A lot of my friends are police officers, and I train with a lot of police officers. And even though, as a defense attorney, doing criminal defense work, police and I are sometimes sort of enemies in the wild. Nonetheless, I deeply respect police officers, and my experience has been that 99+% of them are good people doing a hard job, putting their life on the line, to protect their community, and because they care about their community. Like any profession, and that's true of lawyers and any other profession I can think of. Radio hosts, there are some I certainly don't care much for. But like any profession, there are certainly some rotten apples among police officers, but in my experience, it's very seldom. But in talking to them, the older officers, been around for a while, the more experienced ones, they've gotten to the point where they're used to having guns and vehicles. It's just not a big deal, especially anymore, and especially in Indiana. And in the last 10 years or so, I've had officers tell me, they go, hell, it's weird if there's not a gun in a car. So they're very relaxed about it. And one time, I got pulled over for speeding on my way down to the studio, actually. I was on Fall Creek Boulevard coming across and got pulled over. I was only like 11 miles an hour over the speed limit there on Fall Creek. And I thought, oh, really? Okay. And so I pulled off on a little side street, and the guy pulled up behind me, and he was kind of rushed, like he was in a hurry to get somewhere else. And I handed him, license, registration, proof of insurance, and I put my license to carry right on top. And I've done that a number of times before. And the times I've done it, it's worked great, because the officer looks at it and says, oh, I take it there's a gun in the car. Yes, sir, there is. Where is it? It's in a holster. I'm carrying in an appendix holster today. And just like Tim said just now, I've had several officers, because I drive a little fast and sometimes I get pulled over. I've had several officers say, all right, let's just leave it where it is, shall we? Or again, I had one officer with a smile on his face. He said, you won't touch yours, I won't touch mine. And we both laughed and went on about business. This officer, the IMPD that pulled me off on Fall Creek Boulevard, he looked at my license to carry and he goes, what did you give me this for? I don't need this. And he handed it back to me, and he never mentioned the gun again. But I think experienced officers tend to have that approach. Now, I think younger officers tend to be, just because they're younger and less experienced, and they're a little more nervous about traffic stops. And listen, I've never been a cop, and I can't imagine what it's like walking up. I mean, if you're doing this consistently, especially at night, walking up to window after window, car after car, not knowing if you're going to be met with a friendly smile or, the muzzle of a gun. I mean, I understand that can be a scary proposition. But in my mind, a lot of the experienced officers are not, when someone is otherwise not presenting any kind of, alarm or threat to the officer, and simply says, sir, yes, there's a gun in my car, want to let you know. Most officers that have any experience at all don't react much to that, and that's certainly been my experience. But in doing the show, I mean, I've done shows, I've done a complete 2-hour show on traffic stops, and it's really kind of fascinating, because people keep calling in with story after story, just like Tim just did, of what happened to them, and it can really vary. I had one person, this is probably 5 or 6 years ago. We've been doing the Gun Guy Show for 10 years now, as of last month. But I had one person 5-6 years ago, I was doing a show on traffic stops. Guy called and said, oh man, he said, I had a state police trooper pulled me over, very young officer, who asked me for my driver's license. And I said, well, it's in my wallet. Let me get it. He said, and I pulled my wallet out. And as I was going through the cards in my wallet, looking for my license, the officer saw my license to carry. And he said the officer pulled his gun, pointed it at the side of my head, and started screaming, "Where's the gun? Where's the gun?" Now, that was just one caller a long time ago, 5-6 years ago is my best guess. And that's a really extreme thing. Although I've had other people, whether I've talked to them at the office or have called the show or on social media or otherwise, another person said I voluntarily disclosed I had a gun in the car, and the officer took me out of the car, put me in handcuffs, and parked me in the backseat of his car while he took possession of the gun and ran the serial number and ran my license to carry, make sure it was still valid. This was before constitutional carry. And then when he gave my gun back, he put it on the back seat, dismantled. He had done a field strip on the gun, and had somebody else say that they got their gun back, same thing, put it in the back seat, but the officer kept the ammunition. Another one guy said he'd been drinking, so he had his teenage son who had a driver's license, who he had driving the car, and they got pulled over. The kid took a turn without a turn signal or some such thing. It was something minor. And officer came up, started asking questions, and quickly became apparent that the person who owned the car was having his son drive because he had a bunch of cocktails. And at some point it came up there was a gun in the car. And he goes, well, if you've been drinking and the kid's underage, I'm taking the gun. And the officer, this is in a more rural county, and I don't want to guess, I don't want to cast any aspersions on any departments that don't deserve it. It was in a county south of Indianapolis. And the officer took the gun. I think there were a couple of guns in the car, took him to the police station or sheriff's office and said, you can pick them up tomorrow. And didn't even allow them to continue in possession of the guns. And you've got one person who doesn't have a license, for instance, and has a driver's license, doesn't have a license to carry, but is underage to possess a gun, and another person who's been drinking. All right. Was that officer being heavy-handed or looking out for people's safety? I could argue that either way. But by the way, I don't tell those stories I just went through to bash police officers, because in my personal experience, officers have been great and professional and relaxed. And, I try to be respectful. I'm not going to waive or relinquish or voluntarily give up any of my constitutional rights, but I'm going to be absolutely cordial, polite, pleasant, hands at 10 and 2. I've got a bit of tint on all four windows in my car. I'm going to put all four windows down. I'm going to turn on the interior light if it's nighttime. I'll have my hands at 10 and 2, and I'm sir this and ma'am that. And that's not giving up anything other than just being respectful and cordial in my mind. But my experience with police officers in and around the Indy area has been great. But I go back and revisit what this issue in Ohio, and that's really why I wanted to get that word out there, because even with Ohio recognizing the Indiana license, the guy's still facing felony charges for having a gun in the car. Man, that is so spooky to me, and I hate learning something like that for the first time because I didn't already know it. And again, I focus on Indiana law, certainly, but Ohio is just one state over, and that was important information to me. We're a little past the 3/4 hour. We'll come back for a short segment. We will go right to the phone. So we've got James and Bob on hold. We'll get to both of those guys if we have time right when we come back. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
It's another week of this.
There's a very good chance that we'll have a settlement.
And another day for this.
Water rose 28 foot in 45 minutes.
Plus, another possibility of this.
Monitor the weather condition, the National Weather Service.
That's why another update is just minutes away.
Start saying we're not taking this anymore.
Just another day. Not with all this happening. Every day.
Happening now.
93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for the law offices of Guy Relford. Starting January 1, tax stamps for suppressors, short-barreled rifles, and short-barreled shotguns are going to be free. You're going to save $200 every time you want to build or transfer, that is, buy one of those items, including suppressors. And I'll tell you what, I'm a huge fan of suppressors. I own a bunch of them, and I'm sure I'll continue to buy more, especially when you don't have to pay that extra $200. That's raising a bunch of questions, and I fielded a lot of questions on this at the office, a lot of calls and some visits about gun trust, about NFA gun trust. And people want to know what the advantages are. People want to know the cost and any disadvantages. If you have any questions like that, if you already decided, especially with the free tax stamps, you want to get more into NFA items, including suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, give us a call. Contact us at the law office. It's relfordlaw.com. You can contact us on email right there through the website, relfordlaw.com. We'll talk about NFA Trust. I'll talk about it here on the show tonight if I have some time as well. But it's Relford Law. You can contact us. We'll talk about your NFA Trust.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Change is always happening. It's part of life. And when it comes to music, change is all around us. Songs are rewritten. Classics are remixed. Bands and artists come and go. Even our taste in music changes. Here at Xfinity, we know there's still good in keeping some things the same. That's why we want to do our part with a 5-year price guarantee on our internet. It means no matter what changes, you get 5 years of the most reliable Wi-Fi with our best equipment included for a price that stays exactly the same. Surprised? Life is full of them. One internet price, 5 years, guaranteed. Learn more at xfinity.com/deals. Restrictions apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. Most reliable Wi-Fi based on Open Signal Awards USA. Fixed Broadband Experience Report, August 2024.
Listen up, football fans. You won't want to miss this.
Right now, new Bet365 customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So you could turn that $200 into something bigger when you bet on money line, spread, totals, player props.
$200 in bonus bets when new customers bet $5. I know where I'm going to bet from now on. Download the app today and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Indiana. T&Cs apply. In-app only.
In the construction business, you're only as good as your tools. That's why Quality Supply and Tool offers DeWalt products, like the 20-volt Max XR cordless 3-speed half-inch hammer drill. Buy one and get a 5-amp-hour battery free. That's a $100 value. Or buy two DeWalt 60-volt Max FlexVolt 12-amp-hour batteries and get one free. Only at Quality Supply and Tool and only while supplies last, or September 26th. With locations in West Lafayette, Bloomington, Jeffersonville, and Indianapolis, Quality Supply and Tool thinks outside the box. Store.
It's JMV and Save at Miss Sam's Labor Day weekend sale. 20% off trees and shrubs and patio furniture. 30% off of pottery. State Road 135 in Bargersville, closed Labor Day.
The Attorney General's Office, reuniting Hoosiers with over $1 million in unclaimed property every week. Visit indianaunclaimed.gov or text Tony Katz to 46220 today.
Together, we can provide 1 billion meals by 2030 because everyone should be welcome at the table. Learn more at nourishingneighbors.com.
More tariffs later, tornadoes possible.
WIBC.com gives you more than just headlines. It's context, updates, and insight. Whether you're at work, on the move, or catching up late, the latest is already there. Stay in the know while you're on the go at WIBC.com. Your rights, your responsibilities, your guns. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. We got a little bit of a short segment, but let's go right to the phone lines. And James has been on hold. James, welcome to The Gun Guy Show.
Hi.
Howdy.
Appreciate you taking my call.
Sure.
I have a quick question. When you're outside the vehicle, if you have an Indiana license in Ohio, are you okay with the carry? And also, if you're on your Harley and it's on your side, are you okay? If not? I appreciate you taking my call, and I'll hang up. And
Great questions, James. And listen, huge caveat: I'm not an Ohio attorney. I'll give you based on a little bit of speculation and not legal advice. First of all, talking about vehicles, and listen, I'm a Harley rider. If you're on a motorcycle and the carrying of guns, I've always said that I think on a motorcycle is going to be interpreted as being in a vehicle when you go read these statutes. And where it says you can't be in a vehicle or have a gun in a vehicle where it's accessible, I got to believe that's going to apply. So this news, I shouldn't say broke, because it may not be news to anybody else. It was certainly news to me. But what we were discussing about you can't have a gun accessible, I got to believe that would include having it on your hip in Ohio on a motorcycle. Outside your car, the statute we're talking about not having a gun in a vehicle that's accessible without getting out of the vehicle, doesn't apply if you're just walking around. And my God, if you can't have a handgun on your person, then what good is Ohio recognizing the Indiana license at all? When does it ever apply? And so I have to believe, and truly want to believe, because I've been in that circumstance often, that having a gun on your hip in Ohio outside a vehicle is going to be totally legal. I'll tell you what, if you're on the hold, we'll get right back to you as soon as we can. We have to take a break here at the top of the hour. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Everybody knows Hubler's got the best warranty around. 10 years, 200,000 miles. But did you know? Now you can get that same limited powertrain warranty on new Toyotas. Introducing the all-new Hubler Toyota. Get grand opening savings all month long. And right now, lease a new 2025 RAV4, just $349 per month. Or a new Tacoma, $299 per month. Plus, choose from Camrys, Corollas, Highlanders, Tundras, and more.
Hubler's got you covered.
At the all-new Hubler Toyota on US 31 South in Indianapolis. Visit HublerToyota.com. Grand opening savings and the best warranty around. 10 years, 200,000 miles.
Cover me!
Select models, approved credit, plus tax, tag, title, license, 249 dealer doc. RAV4 model 4432, Tacoma model 7540. 36 months, $29.99 due, 0 security, 10,000 annual miles, 15 cents per mile thereafter. Expires 9/1.
Everyone knows that PA Jewelers in Brownsburg is the place to get one-of-a-kind jewelry pieces. Diamonds, gold, gemstones, watches, everything. But PA Jewelers at the farmhouse is also the place to sell your jewelry, your watches, your coins, or bullion. PA Jewelers has the best prices and the best payouts. And they walk you through the process so you know what your pieces are worth and what you're getting. PA Jewelers at the farmhouse, 3750 South Green Street in Brownsburg, or online at pajewelers.jewelry. That's pajewelers.jewelry.
At Verizon, lock in a low price on the most reliable 5G in Indianapolis and be the best you. Stream your favorite music on your morning commute. Get tickets to that new Blockbuster and save big with Verizon while you do it all. Switch today and pay $50 a month for a single line. That's right, just $50 a month when you bring in your phone on unlimited welcome with autopay plus taxes and fees. Stop by your nearest Verizon store today. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G and 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Rankings based on Root Metrics Root Score Report data 1H 2025. The results may vary. Additional terms apply.
Road trip! This summer at Tire Discounters, your tires are your passport to savings. Because you're driving to Paris,
Texas,
then it's off to Rome,
Georgia,
and you'll be kissing the Blarney Stone in Dublin,
Ohio!
Right now, save up to $404 when you buy 4 tires, and that includes a free alignment and oil change. Stop at Tire Discounters before you see the world.
My name is Jamie Bowles, and I was diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer in December of 2018. Nobody would even know looking at me that I have stage 4 lung cancer, and I'm grateful for biomarker testing for that. When I was sitting down with my oncologist, there was already state-of-the-art medication available that I was going to be put on right then and there. Ask your doctor how comprehensive biomarker testing before treatment may help you decide on the best treatment. Visit NoOneMissed.org to learn more.
A public service message from Longevity Foundation.
Broadcasting from the Technology Recycler Studios, this is Indy's Mobile News, 93 WIBC. WIBC HD1 Indianapolis. The news starts now.
Following our Fox News, a federal appeals court has ruled that much of President Trump's tariff trade policy is unconstitutional. Here's Fox's Alexandria Hoff.
President Trump's tariffs, they're going to remain in place for now. This ruling does not go into effect until October 14th. That's to give time for the Trump administration to file an appeal to the Supreme Court. That panel wrote, the statute bestows significant authority to the president to undertake a number of actions in response to a declared national emergency. But none of these actions explicitly include the power to impose tariffs, duties, or the like, or the power to tax. Now, President Trump emphasized the timeline in his response, adding a highly partisan appeals court incorrectly said that our tariffs should be removed, but they know the United States of America will win in the end. If these tariffs ever went away, it would be a total disaster for the country. It would make us financially weak, and we have to be strong.
The president has made tariffs a pillar of his second term as a way to compel other nations to renegotiate trade deals with the U.S. A separate ruling is blocking the White House from expanding its expedited removal of illegal immigrants. Here's Fox's Madeline Rivera.
The Trump administration expanded its scope in January as part of a policy shift so that non-citizens who were arrested anywhere in the country could be quickly removed if they cannot show they've been in the country for 2 years. In her opinion, federal district court judge Gia Cobb sides with immigrant advocacy group Make the Road, saying the court does not cast doubt on the constitutionality of the expedited removal statute, nor in its long-standing application at the border. It merely holds that in applying the statute to a huge group of people living in the interior of the country who have not previously been subject to expedited removal, the government must afford them due process. The procedures currently in place fall short.
The White House plans to ramp up immigration crackdowns in sanctuary cities. America's listening to Fox News.
Stay on top of the latest forecast with America's Weather Team in the palm of your hands.
Here's the latest from America's Weather Center.
It's Fox weather updates throughout your busy day, every day.
That heat's going to be out there for one more day.
Temperatures being 30 degrees above average.
Put the power of over 100 meteorologists and the worldwide resources of Fox in your hands with the Fox Weather Podcast. Precise, personal, powerful. Subscribe and listen now at foxnewspodcasts.com. Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
The mayor of Chicago has signed an executive order protecting Chicago. Explains how.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
She says he threatened her with a gun. I'm Jarrett Lewis. Here's what's trending this hour. A southwestern Indiana man is being held without bond after allegedly following his ex-girlfriend home and threatening to shoot her. A 17-year-old girl reported that her 19-year-old ex-boyfriend entered her home with a gun and made the threat. Police were able to locate and arrest the suspect, who is now facing charges of felony intimidation, burglary, and driving while suspended. An Indiana congressman says population changes are good enough reason for there to be redistricting in the state before the midterms. Jim Baird recently told Wish TV about the migration patterns he's seen since 2020 and how they have altered the districts.
I think it's important that we make sure that we have people represented in those districts and that they have appropriate representation.
It's possible that Indiana Governor Mike Braun will call a special session so lawmakers can look at potentially redrawing the congressional maps. Meanwhile, state and federal officials are still finalizing details before holding ICE detainees at Camp Atterbury or at the Miami Correctional Facility. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth announced Camp Atterbury as a temporary detention facility that would hold those in the country illegally over a month ago. Governor Mike Braun announced that the Indiana Department of Correction would provide up to 1,000 beds at the Miami Correctional Facility for immigration enforcement cooperation. And the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are starting their season in prime time.
Listen, our guys are going to be excited. I think every person's going to have some nerve. I'll have nerves.
That's head coach Marcus Freeman. The 6th-ranked Irish take on the number 10-ranked Hurricanes in Miami Sunday night. I'm Jarrett Lewis on the level, on the go, and at WIBC.com. Now the forecast from the American Standard Cooling Weather Center.
Mostly clear, low temperatures in the low to mid 50s on Sunday. High temperatures getting in the upper 70s. Another day with mostly sunny skies. Another strong cold front will be on the way late Wednesday. On Wish TV, Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
America respects our first responders and veterans, the brave whose business is taking action when calamity strikes. It's dangerous work, often surrounded by sirens, shouting, even gunfire, so hearing loss is probable. First responders can turn to Relay Indiana. If you have trouble hearing on the telephone, visit RelayIndiana.com for voice recognition technology phones that allow the hearing impaired to have normal phone conversations. And there's loaned equipment for those who qualify. Get clarity back on the phone. Visit RelayIndiana.com.
We play fair in Indiana, but Washington insiders want to cheat. They want taxpayers to spend millions to redraw legislative maps approved just 4 years ago. That's not democracy. It's a power grab, and they're hoping you won't notice. Thankfully, some of our leaders are saying no to D.C. politics. Tell politicians Hoosiers don't cheat. Protect our votes and get back to focusing on our real problems. Join the team at playfairindiana.com. Paid for by Indiana Conservation Voters.
Hilltop Hideaway, a premier Brown County log cabin on 5 wooded acres, has fall availability. August discounts too. HilltopHideawayLogCabin.com.
Find the path to recovery that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment, and this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back for hour number 2 of the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. In the first hour, we were talking about a really disturbing case, a prosecution of a gentleman who was in Ohio. Vontae Garrett is his name. He was in Ohio, traveling back to Indiana. He's an Indiana resident, had an Indiana license to carry, and was pulled over, disclosed he had a gun in the car, and is being prosecuted even though he has a license to carry and even though Ohio recognizes the Indiana license, because there's an Ohio statute that says you can't have a gun accessible to you, a loaded gun accessible to you, inside a vehicle. It can't be accessible to anyone, the driver or the passenger, without getting out of the vehicle. And then there's an exception to that, which if you have a concealed carry license, which is what Ohio calls their license, and the prosecutor in that county, it's Lucas County, Ohio, is taking the position that means exclusively the Ohio license. If you have a license from another state like Indiana that Ohio recognizes, that's not good enough, so that you cannot have a gun accessible to you inside, a loaded gun accessible to you inside a vehicle. That's shocking to me, and that's why I wanted to get that out there. But in the meantime, that has sparked a number of calls, including, I think, from Bob, who's been on hold for quite some time. Bob, thanks for your patience.
Related situation to your previous caller.
Yes, sir.
Open pickup truck, no toolbox, standard cab. What happens in Ohio?
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose if you had, not that I would ever in a million years advocate for this or even say it was acceptable, but I suppose if you had a gun, sliding around in the back of your open bed of your pickup truck, that's not accessible from the cab of the truck without getting out of the vehicle, right? So I suppose that would be okay. Now, if you had it in a case, in a bag, strapped down, or even secured somehow. I mean, I've got a couple of safes that have security cables, so I could have a safe secured in the back of a pickup, with a steel security cable, keeping it in place, keeping anybody else from accessing it. Sounds like that would be okay, Bob, in Ohio, because I couldn't get to it without getting out of the vehicle, right? Makes sense to you?
It's not what I wanted to hear, but
yeah, I mean that's why this is so scary. Let's go back to the phone lines, and I tell you what, I always have a hard time reading Vluth. That's what we have in here. Yeah, welcome to the Gun Guy Show.
Hi, Dave.
Yes.
Love your show.
Okay, hi. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very well.
Good. Well, my question was similar to Bob's. I have an SUV, not a trunk.
Yeah.
What do I do?
I think the one thing it would be if you're in Ohio. Now, again, this doesn't matter if you're here in Indiana. possessing, for instance, a handgun either under constitutional carry or with an Indiana license. But in Ohio, I would have it unloaded, since essentially the entire interior of an SUV is accessible from the interior, right, to either you or a passenger.
Right.
The Ohio statute is limited to having a loaded gun accessible to someone in a vehicle. So I would have it unloaded and then maybe even locked up. So there are multiple steps you'd have to take, like unlocking a box, a safe, a lock box, something along those lines, before you can access it. That, to me, would provide you some security. Back to the phone lines again. Brian, you're on the Gun Guy Show.
Hey, Guy, how are you?
Good.
I just had a comment about Premier Arms. I just got back from there. Little did I know it was a gun store for rich people.
Oh,
if it was a car lot, they would only sell Lamborghinis and Mercedes and BMWs.
Well, listen, hey, full disclosure, Premier Arms are one of our very best sponsors here at WIBC.
Yeah,
they do a lot with Tony Katz. They sponsor Monday Gun Day for me with Hammer and Nigel for my segment there every Monday. And I got to tell you, I've been out there a lot, and they've got your basic, middle of the market type guns. I mean, they have Glocks and SIGs. I mean, they're not only selling Wilson Combats and high-end firearms out there.
Hey, you got time for a historical question?
Sure.
Why was the British SAS so enamored with the Browning 9mm high power? The troubles of Ireland.
Is that a question, or you want to show off what you know about that? Because I honestly do not know.
That is an honest question. I'm just curious. As you well know, no one has shot more people than the British SAS with a pistol.
Well, you know what? That's why it is a fair question. I look, a lot of people are huge fans of the Browning high power. A lot of people are, the John Moses Browning, I don't know why that wasn't coming to me right away, where John Moses Browning gets an awful lot of love for the 1911, as he should, as well as several other inventions of his. I mean, my gosh, the BAR and there just it goes on and on and on. But in terms of handguns, a lot of people say, oh man, the 1911 has been such a venerable and respected firearm for so long. I've got the original patent drawing from John Moses Browning's patent of the 1911. I've got that up in my office. But a lot of people that really know firearms very, very well are actually more in love with the high power than the 1911. So I know it gets a lot of love from a lot of different sources. Well, I'll tell you what, let's switch gears a little bit. I always want to continue to take calls throughout the show. Feel free to join us, 317-239-9393, as we go throughout the show. But I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and it was interesting to me. I saw a news article that said that, and I mentioned this just very briefly at the start of the show, that Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie, and look, he's, I think, a true conservative. He bumps heads with even the other Republicans in Washington quite a bit in Congress. He tends to stand on principle on spending issues, which I respect. He tends to stand on principle on Second Amendment issues, which I deeply respect. But he announced here just this last week, after the Minneapolis church/school shooting. It was a Catholic school that also had its own church on the premises. And some deranged transgender individual who, by the way, wrote a manifesto, and that has been reviewed by law enforcement, and excerpts of it continue to be released. But after this, as shooting on school property, Thomas Massie proposed a repeal of the federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. And he said, look, schools as so-called gun-free zones just means that they're safe places for mass killers to go perform mass shootings. And you want to go murder a bunch of people and murder as many people as you possibly can, then you want to go where you're not going to meet armed resistance, or where at least there's going to be a substantial response time before you're met with armed resistance. And a lot of mass shooters select schools for exactly that reason. So Thomas Massey says, well, at least part of the reason that schools are safe zones for mass shooters is the federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. So he wants to repeal it. And a couple of things. First of all, is it true that the Minneapolis shooter who killed a couple of young kids who were just in church praying? I mean, what a demented, low-life piece of you-know-what do you have to be to want to kill young kids just praying in church, sitting in pews? It's mind-boggling to me that the depths of depravity some of these people sink to. But is there any indication that this person actually selected this particular church/school because it was a gun-free zone? Well, actually, yes. That's in his manifesto. And yes, it's a him who was pretending to be a female, calling himself transgender. And even in his manifesto, when he's talking about shooting up this particular church and school, he said, it seems like the kind of school to not arm their teachers. That's a quote I'm reading from one news account from his manifesto. And another place in the same manifesto, quote, I bet that liberal school does not allow teachers to carry, end quote. He's selecting that church and that school specifically because he doesn't think he's going to meet armed resistance. And listen, that fits perfectly with something I've talked about before, which is, and I've gone to training courses on this. And there's a gentleman named Ed Monk. I went to his training course for the National Association of School Resource Officers when it was here in Indianapolis a couple of years ago. And he was nice enough to invite me. I went through the whole thing. And he says, listen, the number of victims you're going to get, the number of casualties, killed and wounded in a mass shooting, he goes, it comes down to time and math. I mean, in other words, we know before a mass shooter meets armed resistance. And it's not dependent on the type of firearm, although we hear that nonstop. It's about time and math. Because a certain amount of time goes by before there's armed resistance, we know the number of people that are going to die within parameters. We know how many people are going to get wounded and how many are going to die based on simple time. The time before the second gun arrives. The time before armed resistance arrives. And if there's armed resistance already on the scene, like Eli Dickin, my friend and my client in the Greenwood Park Mall, he was in the food court when the bad guy, who will not be named on my show, showed up in the food court and started murdering people. And that mass shooting lasted 15 seconds, period, total. Because that's how long it took for Eli to see what was going on, realize what the situation was, decide to take action, and stop that mass shooting, which he did by shooting the mass shooter, starting from 43 yards away, all the way across the food court. But from Eli's first shot, which hit the bad guy from 43 yards away, bad guy did not pull the trigger another time. So time and math, 15 seconds, damn few people died. Now, 3 innocent people lost their lives, and I don't ever want to talk about that shooting without mentioning that. You know, to some degree, people celebrate the Greenwood Park Mall shooting because it showed a heroic citizen carrying concealed, legally, stopping a mass shooting, even though we hear from anti-gun people that quote-unquote never happens. And so a lot of us look at that as a positive thing because it proved just the opposite. That yes, it does happen. It did happen. It happened right here in central Indiana. But 3 innocent people lost their lives. But you know why only 3 innocent people lost their lives? And not 3 dozen or more, given the number of people who were in that mall on a Sunday night near closing time? It was because an armed citizen was there and the whole thing lasted 15 seconds. Time and math. 15 seconds, damn few people died. Because the armed resistance is already there. And you know who knows that? Mass shooters know that. which is why this guy, who also will not be named in Minneapolis, will not be named here on my show, said, you know, this seems like the kind of school to not arm their teachers. I bet this liberal school does not allow their teachers to carry. That's why he selected it. So Thomas Massie wants to repeal the federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. If that were to happen, and that's certainly not anything I'm predicting, notwithstanding the narrow majority of Republicans in both houses of Congress. But if it were to happen, what difference would that make? That's what we'll get into, and as well as take your calls and get back to the phone lines here when we continue. Give us a call. Join the discussion, 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
The ultimate job of why we send people to Congress is not to be a teammate or an opposition to the president. It's to be a check and balance. If there's areas you agree, great, you vote together. If there's areas you don't agree, you push back. And all we see now in terms of our Congress is just, hey, if it's Democrat, it's blanket opposition. And if you're Republican, it's blatant errand boy behavior.
Kendall and Casey. Weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for the law offices of Guy Relford. You know, have you ever thought about an NFA trust? That is a trust that can own your NFA items like your suppressors, your short-barreled rifles, your short-barreled shotguns, your automatic firearms. If you own those as registered NFA items, a lot of people want to own those as part of a trust rather than individually. Why? Because, well, it allows multiple people to possess that registered item as long as they're co-trustees on a trust. It also means that your estate, once you're no longer with us, doesn't have to go back to the government and play Mother May I to allow the co-trustees or successors on your trust to be able to continue to possess those items after your death. There's no additional filing with the government. There's no Mother May I. There's no additional paperwork. The trust takes care of all of that, as well as allowing all your co-trustees, whether family members or shooting buddies or whatever it might be, to possess those NFA items. You've got suppressors you want to share with your hunting buddies. When you go out, a lot of people love hunting with suppressors, and I know exactly why. I'm a huge fan of shooting with suppressors myself. Every time I shoot suppressed, it makes me want to buy more suppressors for more of my firearms. If you have questions or you're interested in NFA Trust, just contact us through the website. Go to relfordlaw.com, and you can see the phone number there and give us a call, or contact us on email through the website. It's relfordlaw.com.
Lanny went to college and racked up huge debt.
A little bit over $100,000.
For a degree he couldn't use, now what?
I had a friend that went to My Computer Career.
They even helped him get hired immediately after graduation.
One of the things I love about IT is that you can work from anywhere you want.
You could become an IT pro in just months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI with zero experience at mycomputercareer.edu. My Computer Career, an elite CompTIA certification partner.
It worked for me, and I know it can work for you.
This is one student's experience. Individual results vary.
Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield has the deals you've been looking for your next car, truck, SUV, or electric vehicle. And right now, during their red, white, and new sales event, you will get independence from car payments with no payments for 3 months and enjoy your freedom in the new Ford F-150 Super Crew or Mustang with 0% APR financing for 48 months. At Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield, they're pros at servicing your commercial vehicles. From medium to heavy-duty F-Series trucks, talk to Andy Moore Ford, the biggest selection of Super Duties in the entire state. Over 175 Super Duty trucks are on the ground and ready for you and your business, and you can save thousands because Andy always gives you more. And with an expert team and a fast turnaround, they know how to keep your business moving. Talk to Andy Moore Ford today, 2713 East Main Street in Plainfield, or online at Andy Moore Ford, MOHR. AndyMooreFord.com.
Fall is approaching, and Sundown Gardens is ready to help you. Visit the Garden Center for all things fall and shop the Labor Day weekend sale. Now at Sundown Gardens, save 20% on all trees and shrubs and 30% off on all pottery. These are the deals you just don't want to miss. Get ahead on the fall planning, add some color with high-quality pottery, and ensure your property is beautiful for the fall season ahead. Sundown Gardens on the corner of 186th Street and Spring Mill Road in Westfield, closed on Labor Day, sundown.gardens.com.
We see it every day online.
tragedy of some sort, and our kids see it too. This message is brought to you by the Indiana Youth Institute. Now more than ever, our youth need our support, even if they don't experience an event firsthand. Talking about what is going on can help them understand and feel safe. When talking to our youth about tragedy, use gentle words, offer comfort, and encourage them to share their worries. And remember, our youth could be experiencing fear, shock, anger, anxiety, and grief. These reactions are all normal, and their age will likely affect how they handle the stress. Be patient with support as your child grieves. However, if the child continues to display strong reaction for more than 2 to 4 weeks, they might need more help coping. This Kids Count Minute is a message from the Indiana Youth Institute. For more parent tips, go to iyy.org/kids.
Kids count on you.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZzzQuil Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZzzQuil Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Housing discrimination because of race, color, or national origin is against the law. If you believe you've experienced housing discrimination, contact HUD at hud.gov/fair housing.
No Kid Hungry is providing healthy meals and hope to hungry kids so they can build better futures. Learn more at helpnokidhungry.org.
Now you've got a gun guy. Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show. So Thomas Massie, representative from Kentucky, wants to repeal the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. What would that really mean? Well, what the Gun-Free School Zones Act, the federal statute, and by the way, we have an Indiana state law as well, who a lot of people refer to as the Indiana Gun-Free School Zones Act, that also prohibits firearms on school property. But would we have to, as Representative Massie seems to imply in his press release, would we have to repeal the Gun-Free School Zones Act, the federal statute, in order for teachers or armed security or anyone else to have guns on school property? Well, the federal statute, it has a big exception to it. It says, in some sense, it's much broader than the Indiana statute, but it has a huge exception. And the reason it's much broader is it says you can't have a gun in a school zone, and a school zone is defined as school property, that is property actually owned by a school, or anything within 1,000 feet, anywhere within 1,000 feet of school property. So if a school owns right out to the sidewalk, you can't be within 1,000 feet of the edge of that sidewalk. Now, there's a bunch of exceptions. You're on private property, not a part of the school. I mean, a lot of people live within 1,000 feet of a school. Well, it doesn't apply to that. But it has and several other exceptions. But a huge one is the federal statute does not apply, get this, if you're licensed by the state in which the school is located to possess a firearm. So in Indiana, if you're licensed by the state of Indiana, the federal statute, and don't get too excited because the Indiana state statute prohibiting guns on school property does not have this exception. So for crying out loud, don't go to parent-teacher night carrying your gun in a holster because you have a license. You wouldn't be arrested under federal law, but you sure as hell would under state law. But the federal statute that Representative Massie wants to repeal has law enforcement exception. It has enforcement for anyone licensed by the state in which a school is located. Indiana says you cannot have a gun on school property itself. We don't have any buffer zone, this 1,000 foot or any other distance. You just can't have a gun on school property itself. Several exceptions to it. In fact, I've helped write and written some bills entirely that have dramatically improved the Indiana guns on school property law because, for instance, now on school property, if you lawfully possess that firearm, you can leave that gun in your car on school property when you get out of your car, as long as it's locked in the glove compartment of a locked car, it's locked in the trunk, or it's otherwise stored out of sight in a locked vehicle. out of sight in a locked vehicle. That's new. That's within the last 5 years or so we passed that. Used to be if you got out of your car and left a gun in it, even if it was locked in the trunk or locked somewhere in the vehicle itself, out of sight, used to be a felony. Now it's totally legal. Something that directly applies to what just happened in Minneapolis. It's never been against the law specifically in Indiana to have a gun to possess a gun in a church. But as I say, it's against the law to have a gun on school property, and school property is defined as any property or other building co-owned or on the same land, the same property with a school. And so up until 2019, if there was a school and a church on the same property, you could not go to church and carry your gun, even though the school was closed on Sunday or Saturday, whenever it is you're attending a worship service. You could not take your gun because it was school property. Could not take your gun to church because there was a school somewhere on the same property, or a licensed daycare on the same building or on the same property. That's what we're talking about, K through 12. Both the federal law and the state law, we're talking about K through 12 and licensed daycares. In Minneapolis, if they'd have had Indiana's law before 2019, anybody going to church in that church, which was on school property, could not have legally carried a gun. We changed that in 2019. In 2019, if you're attending a worship service or a religious ceremony in a house of worship, you can carry any gun that you lawfully possess. So if you have a license to carry, you're carrying under constitutional carry, you can carry that to church, even though it's on school property. But the federal statute has this big exception. If you're licensed by the state in which the school is located, then you're not violating the federal statute. So as far as Mr. Massey or Representative Massey wanting to repeal the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act, hey, anytime we're eliminating gun control, I'm a fan. That wouldn't affect the Indiana statute. And it's not a huge deal because as long as you have your license in Indiana, that federal statute doesn't apply to you anyway. Now, that is a reason I say often, even though we have constitutional carry, and I fought for 10 years to get that passed. I helped write the bill that finally passed in 2022. And I spent a lot of time at the State House, a lot of time on the phone and on email and every other mode of communication I could think of to try to get that passed. Over 10 years, we got it passed. But let's say you're within 1,000 feet of a school, but you're carrying under constitutional carry. Now you don't fall within that exception where you're licensed to possess a gun by the state in which the school is located. Now you got a potential problem under the Gun-Free School Zones Act. But do we need all this to happen in Indiana? Do we need to repeal the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act to have guns on school property, to allow teachers to carry, or to allow the school to have armed security, private security? No, we don't. Because as long as those people have a license to carry, they're outside the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. And get this, in Indiana, even though there's not the licensing exception, that is, there's no exception for having a license to carry to the prohibition about having a gun on school property under the Indiana statute. So even though I have my license to carry, now again, there's an exception for having a gun in a vehicle or leaving a gun in a locked vehicle out of sight. Those are exceptions. But let's say I walk onto school property carrying a gun in a holster in Indiana. I just walk right up into the parking lot and approach the front door. I've got a gun in a holster. I'm carrying it openly. I've got my Indiana license. I'm not violating the federal statute, but I sure as hell am violating the state statute, and I go to prison on a level 6 felony. Because having a license is not an exception under the state statute. However, we have a different exception in Indiana that would allow schools to arm teachers or other security, private security, which is you can have a gun on school property separate and apart from any license, which does help you under the federal statute. But separate and apart from that, under Indiana law, you can have a gun on school property, you can possess a firearm on school property if you're authorized by the school board to do so. So if a school board decides to arm teachers, and again, a lot of discussion since the Minnesota shooting. There's been a lot of discussion periodically since Sandy Hook in Connecticut many years ago. We don't need to change the law to allow teachers or staff or other private citizens to carry a gun on school property. If they have a license, they're good under federal law, and if they have the permission of the school board, and some schools like charter schools don't have boards, but it says the school board or body that administers a charter school, if you have authorization from that school board or other body that administers a charter school to have a gun on school property, you can have a gun today on school property. We don't need a repeal. Now, not that I'm saying Thomas Massey's having a bad idea to repeal the federal gun-free school zones. Anytime we repeal gun control, I'm generally going to favor it. But we don't need that to happen in Indiana to have armed security. Are there any schools in Indiana doing this? Yes. Yes, there are. And get this. For about the last 2 or 3 years, since a bill passed that was authored by Jim Lucas down in District 69, Jim authored a bill. It's a great bill. And I went in and argued for it. I had nothing to do with writing it. That was all Jim and people he worked with at the Law Enforcement Academy, the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy out in Plainfield. There is now a bill that has a 40-hour curriculum outlined right in the bill. And it says if a school system, a school board, wants to arm its teachers and gives them authorization to be armed, they can go through this 40-hour firearm training curriculum. It's not just firearm, it's field first aid, it's gunshot first aid, it's active shooter response, it's firearm security and retention, which is huge in a school environment, obviously. Then if they want to put their teachers through that, it provides the curriculum, and the state will give grants to pay for it. So in Indiana, we have the infrastructure. Legally, we have the infrastructure. Funding-wise, we have the infrastructure for schools to arm teachers or other staff if they want to. It's up to the school board. You don't have to worry about the federal statute if they have a license to carry. You don't have to worry about the state statute if they have authorization of the school board or body that it administers a charter school. That's huge. That's huge. I'm not saying Representative Massey's idea is a bad one. I'm saying we don't need that to happen in Indiana to do the right thing, given the fact that the number of casualties, this is proven, detailed study, again, detailed study on every active shooting that's ever happened in Indiana by Mr. Monk, who I talked about earlier. Ed Monk shows it's all about the timing of the first responder with a gun. And if they're already armed, there's already armed security right there on site to respond immediately. That's going to dramatically cut down casualties every single time. And that's it's time and math, as Ed Monk says, and he's proven it. You want to read a great book on this? It's on Amazon. It's The First 30 Seconds is the name of his book. It's just out. It's only been out a month or two. The First 30 Seconds. You want to know about mass shootings? You want to know what it takes to reduce the number of casualties? I mean, hell, liberals, Democrats would have you believe if we just passed an assault weapon ban, it'll stop mass shootings. I keep hearing that. Congress and Republicans in Congress and President Trump have the ability to stop school shootings. They just won't do it. They don't have the political courage to ban assault weapons. I'm sorry, the worst school shooting in history at Virginia Tech was done with 2 handguns. And had the most casualties of any school shootings we've ever seen. School shootings. The worst school catastrophe in terms of murder of students in a school was in Michigan, where there were no guns involved. It was done with explosives. So this idea of stopping mass shootings by taking legal firearms away from law-abiding gun owners is ludicrous to me. And the idea we're going to, quote-unquote, stop mass shootings by banning certain classes of weapons is moronic. It's not just counterintuitive. It's downright stupid. But what we can do is limit the number of casualties. And one of the ways to do that is having an armed response on property. And in Indiana, that's completely doable for any school in any school district where they have the political will to get it done. I'm way past the bottom of the hour. It's time to take a break. We'll come back, and I'll get to the phone lines. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel.
Weatherman upset that Trump cutting some funding to the National Weather Service. The war on science. Yeah, tell me more about that science that told me I had to wear a mask made in China that didn't protect me from anything. Tell me about the science of 6 feet apart. Tell me about the science of being in a restaurant. You can sit down and eat with no mask, but you got to stand up and wear a mask. But if you go to can, you got to stand back up and put it on again.
Hammer and Nigel, weekdays 3 till 7 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Everybody knows Hubler's got the best warranty around. 10 years, 200,000 miles. But did you know? Now you can get that same limited powertrain warranty on new Toyotas. Introducing the all-new Hubler Toyota. Get grand opening savings all month long. And right now, lease a new 2025 RAV4, just $349 per month. Or a new Tacoma, $299 per month. Plus, choose from Camrys, Corollas, Highlanders, Tundras, and more.
Hubler's got you covered.
At the all-new Hubler Toyota on US 31 South in Indianapolis. Visit HublerToyota.com. Grand opening savings and the best warranty around. 10 years, 200,000 miles.
Cover me!
Select models, approved credit, plus tax tag title license 249 dealer doc. RAV4 model 4432. Tacoma model 7540. 36 months, $29.99 due, 0 security, 10,000 annual miles, 15 cents per mile thereafter. Expires 9/1.
Comcast Business High Five Hotline. What's the state of your excitement?
I signed my business up for the 5-year price lock guarantee, and I can't stop high-fiving people. High five!
Okay, deep breath. You're in a good place. You signed your business up for 5 years of gig speed internet and advanced security, all on our ultra-reliable network.
Gig speeds and advanced security? I'm so stoked.
Yep, and you get it at a great rate that's locked in for 5 years.
Woo!
The high five is just your body's way of saying, I'm winning.
So this is natural.
High-fiving everyone you see in a state of business savings enthusiasm? Totally natural.
Sweet! Thank you! Thank you! High five, everybody! High five!
The Comcast Business 5-year price lock guarantee is back, but only for a limited time, so sign your business up today.
High five!
Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Ends 9/21/25 for new customers with qualifying bundle. Current customers may be eligible depending on services and area. Guaranteed rate applies to monthly service charge, excluding taxes and fees. Other restrictions apply.
This hour on 93 WIBC is powered by Pierce Jewelers, Carmel's Diamond Engagement Ring Store.
Fox News, I'm Roger Stern. 2 legal setbacks for the president. A federal appeals court ruled that President Trump did not have the authority to level tariffs on other countries despite his emergency powers.
The statute bestows significant authority to the president to undertake a number of actions in response to a declared national emergency, but none of these actions explicitly include the power to impose tariffs.
That's Fox's Alexandria Hoff quoting the decision. And another federal court blocked the president's hope of expanding fast-track deportations.
A federal judge blocked the administration from deporting immigrants who are in the country illegally without a hearing. A Department of Homeland Security spokesman tells the New York Times the ruling ignores the president's clear authorities.
That's Fox's Madeline Rivera. America is listening to Fox News.
Have you heard about Galaxy Concrete Coatings and their transformation? Your neighbor Bruce did.
Well, the project I was wanting to accomplish was my driveway. I wanted to see if I could get something that looked halfway decent, that would last a while. We also had a side patio surface redone.
Garage, basements, patios, sidewalks, driveways, Galaxy will transform your surface in as little as 1 day.
The crew was very, very good, excellent. The end result was just super. It is non-slippable surface. I get this if you want to make sure you're not going to have any people slipping or sliding when it rains.
Commercial or residential, 4 times stronger than epoxy, and it comes with a lifetime warranty.
The end result was just super. It was very easy to keep this surface clean. I had tire tracks all over it, and I just took out my hose, sprayed it down, and it looks just like new again.
Click on GalaxyConcreteCoatings.com and remember to like us on Facebook. Galaxy Concrete Coatings. We are out of this world.
People think slavery ended long ago. Well, what if I told you it's worse than ever? Human trafficking is an epidemic, stealing lives in plain sight. Into the darkness, God raised up Project Rescue, bringing light, healing, and hope. Every year, Life Church partners with the Lucas family to host the Hope Starts Here breakfast for business partners with the gift of giving who want to make a difference. Join us Thursday, September 18th at Lucas Estates and see what happens when Hoosiers stand united against evil. Learn more at lifechurchin.com.
Shop incredible end-of-summer savings at the Scandinavian Designs Labor Day sale. For a limited time, take up to 70% off select modern furniture and decor for every room in your home, including living room, bedroom, dining room, and more. This is the perfect opportunity to get your space prepped for the party season ahead. Stop by your local showroom today or shop online at ScandinavianDesigns.com. Scandinavian Designs. We make it simple, you make it home.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. We just had a caller who couldn't stay on the line, but he had a question. He said he walks his dogs past school property and carries a gun when he does so. Does he have a problem? Well, the federal statute, Gun-Free School Zones Act, says you can't be within 1,000 feet of a school and possess a firearm, but there's a big exception, which is if you're licensed by the state in which the school is located to possess that firearm. So if you have a handgun license, you're good to go. If you don't have a handgun license and you're carrying under constitutional carry, you could theoretically have a problem. Now, I have never once heard of somebody being prosecuted, certainly not in Indiana, for just being close to a school while they're carrying a gun. And get this, there's no exception to the federal statute. There's a reason to repeal it right here. There's no exception to the federal Gun-Free School Zones Act that says you can't have a gun within 1,000 feet of a school, 1,000 feet of school property. There's no exception for being on a public street. I mean, everybody driving past a school, as we all do, most of us several times a day, if you don't have a license for whatever gun's in your vehicle as you drive by that school, you're violating the Gun-Free School Zones Act. Now, again, if I ever heard anybody saying, well, gosh, you got pulled over for a traffic stop and you're here on a public street in front of a school, therefore we're going to prosecute you, it's a federal statute. So only a federal law enforcement officer would probably be focused on that point. But it's not an exception under the law. If somebody wanted to be a complete colossal jerk in law enforcement, they'd call their buddy in the FBI or ATF, whoever it was, say, hey, this guy is driving down the street within 1,000 feet of a school. There's no exception for being on a public street, as ridiculous as that is. Let's go to the phone lines, and Jack has called with a question. Jack, welcome to the Gun Guy Show.
Hey, Guy. I'm always doing a great job. I appreciate it.
Sure, man.
Do. Hey, my son was going to, I don't really do computers, but my son was going to, and I was looking at stuff with him, and then all of a sudden this thing popped on up that said that there's a federal license. If you've got a state license and you could apply for this federal license and you could carry in all 50 states, is that true, or is that just some kind of scam?
No, you know what? I'm really glad you asked that question, Jack, because there are a bunch of scams out there and they all make me mad. And when I see them on social media, I always call them out and say, hey, this is a complete and total scam. There's no such thing other than maybe having a federal law enforcement badge. And there is, for law enforcement, there's also LEOSA, the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, that as long as they remain qualified, police officers have some protection carrying in 50 states. But there's these ads that say, hey, you know, for a limited time only, apply for this license or apply here and we'll get you a license. It's good for all 50 states. There's no such thing. You know, I went and applied for a Utah license a long time ago because that was good in something like 38 states when Indiana's at the time was only good in I don't know, it was in the low 20s, I think. But Indiana's license now is good up, I think we're up to 32 states now where they recognize the Indiana license. Plus there are now 29 states, I think North Carolina is going to become the 30th, that have constitutional carry. And so in those 29 other states, currently 28, other than Indiana, if you want to travel with your handgun, they have constitutional carry. Again, subject to the caveats I was talking about earlier, is you got to know the other laws there. But these websites would say, oh, apply here. You know, I've seen them to say, apply now for the Indiana license. And you go to this website and they ask you the same questions. And of course you got to pay them money. They ask you basically the same questions that are on the Indiana license to carry. And they go, congratulations, you're eligible for the Indiana license if you answer correctly on all these questions about are you eligible. And then it just refers you to the Indiana license, to the Indiana State Police website, where you could have just gone there yourself directly and applied and not paid these bozos any money. So, and some of them say, come take this training course, and if you pass this course, you qualify for the Indiana license. No, there is no training course required for the Indiana license. You want an Indiana license, go to the state police website. But separately, this 50-state license, there's no such thing. There is no such animal. And if you fell for one of those scams, I feel badly, but that's why I'm glad Jack called and asked, because it is an absolute scam. They want money from you, and you get nothing in return. Let's take a break there. We'll come back and wrap it up on this edition of the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
It's another week of this.
There's a very good chance that we'll have a settlement.
And another day for this.
Water rose 28 foot in 45 minutes.
Plus, another possibility of this.
Monitor the weather condition, the National Weather Service.
That's why another update is just minutes away.
Start saying we're not taking this anymore.
Just another day.
Not with all this happening.
Every day.
Happening now.
93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for the law offices of Guy Relford. You know, if you've lost your gun rights or you have a family member or loved one that this applies to, for a lot of firearm disabilities, as we call them, whether it's a felony conviction or something similar, for a lot of those, we can restore gun rights if a person is eligible. Does that apply to you? Does that apply to your friend or coworker or family member? Oh, one way to find out, give us a call through the website. It's relfordlaw.com. The phone number's right there. You can send us an email through the website. We do a lot of expungements, which restore gun rights. There's a separate process for restoration of rights after a crime of domestic violence. And now, thanks to the Trump administration, there's a federal restoration if you have a federal prohibitor like a felony conviction in federal court. Any of that applies to you, you're curious about whether your rights can be restored, then give us a call. Contact us through the website. It's relfordlaw.com.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
When it comes to your home, it's important to sell it to someone you can trust. Simple Quarters has helped over 3,000 families sell their homes in Indiana.
I'm excited to start the new chapter of my life. I'm going to be moving 2 states away to be with my husband. Ronnie came out to do my walkthrough. It was great. We had a chance to talk about the house. We had a chance to listen to what my goals were, and they helped me to meet them. Then I had the offer, I believe, within 2 hours of them coming through and doing the walkthrough. Simple Quarters never tried to change their offer at any point during the process. Once they gave me that offer, it stood. The offer was absolutely fair. They did explain to me how they came to that price, and it was a fair offer. The best part about this process is I didn't have to make any repairs to the house. Simple Quarters has taken it as is, which is a huge stress relief. It just couldn't have worked out better. It really couldn't have.
Call Simple Quarters 317-900-HOME. 317-900-HOME.
An official message from Medicare.
I'm saving money on my Medicare prescriptions. Maybe you can save too. With Medicare's Extra Help program, my premium is $0 and my out-of-pocket costs are low. Who should apply? Single people making less than $24,000 a year or married couples who make less than $32,000. Even if you don't think you qualify, it pays to find out.
Go to ssa.gov/extrahelp. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
After I got out of the Marine Corps, coming back home, it was just a mental breakdown for me. I was on the verge of giving up. That chapter, that season in my life was over. Now what? Who was I? That's what I kept asking myself. The pressure to have it all together, to heal, to quiet down the monsters inside, it was too much. I lost it. I had heard about the Wounded Warrior Project. I had seen the logo and that visual of a warrior carrying another warrior. The programs that the Wounded Warrior Project offers, it's not just the veteran themselves, it's their whole family. It brings it all together. We have scars that we carry, and just because the scars are there doesn't mean that we're any less than what we were. Right now, I'm the best version that I ever have been of myself. I can embrace the brokenness.
You wouldn't go into battle alone. You don't have to fight this alone. Visit woundedwarriorproject.org/notalone.
Forget digging through clutter to find what matters. The WIBC Daily Newsletter puts the biggest local stories and exclusive show moments in your inbox and lets you skip the scroll. Sign up by clicking Connect at WIBC.com. Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back as we wrap up this edition of the Gun Guy Show. A little SCOTUS watch going on here. What's going on in the Supreme Court? A new petition for cert for certiorari, which is asking the Supreme Court to take a case. It was here filed this last week. A number of Second Amendment groups, including the Second Amendment Foundation. You know, one of the reasons it breaks my heart that we have these clowns, the Indiana Firearms Indiana Firearms Coalition, is they sound too much like some legitimate organizations out there, like the National Firearms Coalition, that are doing good work. But another group that's doing good work is the Second Amendment Foundation, 2AF, as I like to call them, and they filed, along with some other local gun rights groups in states around the country, as well as the Second Amendment Law Center, which also do absolutely good work. They filed an application here recently. They went to the Supreme Court to take a case involving the constitutionality of short-barreled rifles being included within the NFA. And I talked about tax stamps going to free starting January 1. Hey, that's great, but we all know the vastly preferable response to, I think, what is the abuse of the NFA is to simply repeal it. And if we can do that one provision at a time, including SBRs being included within NFA, then I'm a big fan. Suppressor shouldn't be in it. Short-barreled shotgun shouldn't be in it. We ought to repeal it altogether, but this is a nice step in the right direction. That's it for this week's show. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you come back. And remember, always be safe and always shoot straight.
Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield has the deals you've been looking for.